Okay, we're in. I'm just checking. Just checking. I was checking some of the things because this is not a plan to go live today. We will be going live again. Sorry for uh, not being around, uh, not being able to do this. I had mentioned I had a death in the family, and then I just went through a surgery. Yeah, I did. I went through a surgery a little over a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks, and I have not been able to record. It was an oral surgery, so I really couldn't talk, but I'm feeling much better, and I'm in the place now to do this. So yeah, I'm glad you guys are here. Definitely, um, we have an episode today. Glad to be back. I'm recording very early in the morning, 5:25 a.m. And so it's 5:25 a.m. Guess what I'm not doing? I will set this to record to be come out today. Today's the 26th of November. Hopefully in November to remember before you guys. Not too much of a November to forget, but glad you guys. Thank you guys for some of the messages, wondering where I've been, why I haven't been recording. Did the channel stop, um, and all that? No, it hasn't. I have some good ideas. Some show to what we're doing today. Going to talk about discuss. We're in what the Bible would call peerless times, right? This is uh, it mentions peerless times, rough times. When we look at everything in the physical, and if your awareness is up, and this challenge for them with awareness, because I'm going to tell you what, a lot of stuff is being said. There's a lot of overwhelming stuff. I actually believe the system, whatever you may call it, the mint, is really trying to tell you what's going on. They're really telling you what is going on, what is happening, what is uh, going on with them. And unless you're able to decode it, it just goes like this, flies over your head. And how I know and what I've seen is what's been being said on one state of things by one RFK. Like I was going to keep referring here, I know that all sides are the same side, just the opposite side of the quarter. And when you know a dualistic plane, guess what you will understand? And you must understand. And if you have no knowledge, that's why in this reality, the people are destroyed from lack thereof of it, right? I mean, that's what it says. And if you're in depth of that religion, you support something that really is the demise of yourself, which is facts. And them awaken well. That's why this is awaken channel. If you're somebody who's very religious, as you know, I'm going to tell you this ain't the place to habitate at, because this is for them who have awoke out of a religious mindset and have awakened and had a conscious awakening, an awakening. So I had was on an Instagram, and there's this post where RFK had was talking about the backy back, or the jooby joob, jabby jab, and he was saying what we all know is he's been saying now, and many knew before. He didn't need him to tell you what it was, right? Didn't need him to tell you what it was, but it seems like everything's in full disclosure. Whether that, whatever purpose that full disclosure is, it seems that we're being taught a lot, told a lot. And I told you about in former videos a lot of stuff that is happening, and what happened via RKX. I got to give him definitely the hats off to what he had mentioned early in the year, that we would end up seeing a Christian Reich appear because of the Muslims and the things happening in Europe. If you don't know what's happening in Europe, and if you don't know, I don't know. There must be a quick awakening and an elevation for you, and that can happen. I don't doubt it. An awakening can happen to see and hear, and many people can experience growth really exponentially at this time, but many will miss it. And sometimes I'm just wondering, it's just like, God, almost like you need to start over, because when you start looking at this things and monitoring it, things are happening and those are awake can see it, but it is overwhelming and you don't always know what to believe, right? And you don't always know what's they're telling you is true, or there's different occasions of things. Is this true? Is this not? Is this Tommy right? I used to have this pastor, older pastor, when I first started Christianity. Went and I went into it. I was part of an apostolic church. I don't know if you know what an apostolic is, but the apostolic church, oneness, baptized in Jesus' name, church. And he used to talk about things that were not good or things that were not right, um, or untrue. He'd call it Tommy rut. I believe older folks, much older than me, I'm 63, would use. I mean, he was saying that when I was 19, 20. So you're looking 40 something years ago. So God, he would be in his early hundreds if still living. But a lot of stuff's out there. A lot of stuff that you're being told. A lot of stuff you're being really propagated. A lot of stuff. Um, you're being administered a lot of stuff. Um, is being mentioned, being said. I was so why saying this. I was on this Instagram. Instagram is in full reveal. I'm hearing, and I don't have X. That X is supporting. Definitely, is it real? And the things that they do, and is really monitoring that. And I had to go watch some former videos I had recently about creating our own invisible digital prison, which is definitely in the works. Um, um, China now is getting ready to, and they're in talks about starting the first very, very crypto bank. Um, Meta Insider that told me that. Why they told me that is another story, but they did. And couldn't go very deep with them at all because they weren't in a place to hear because they're looking at this as good because they a lot of money, a lot of owning of money. It lets me see that we are in very peerless times. Um, Not that I'm indoctrination of any religion is for your demise and for your control, is putting borders in or putting fence around the corral. And it's not an okay corral, if you get my Tokyo drift. Um, but anyways, and it was a post about um, RFK talking about the the jabby jabby being what it was, and the reported things that are being reported now. I've seen the Senate within the last couple of weeks having the report showing the magnification of all diseases through all inoculations causes. So they're really telling us everything that's been done, and even the most recent one being the that they were pretty much wasn't the best for you, which didn't have to tell me, but because I knew this from the beginning, because I've known for a while, the very ones you don't trust is something called the government, because the word government means mind control, and they are what they are called. When we really understand, they are what they are called. But um, and going on there and seeing people say, being open to what's happening at the time and saying, "Oh shoot, okay, um, that's interesting. That's going on. That's what's happening, right?" And all that. That's what's I see. Um, uh, um, wow. You know, telling you the truth of what many knew. And then many people talking about it being a conspiracy theory. And it just hit me that if you don't see now what's happening, I don't know what help you can get. And it started throwing me into people being very lost, or are they PCNs? Because if you're not aware of everything that happened, or so predictably hijacked by the left versus right and the right versus left, and caught up in that, stuff, you would not know. You just, it's just like, for me, it's mind boggling and mind blowing that somebody would be like questioning something that the Senate's talking about it. The very thing they trusted, the CDC, go on their website and they're telling you about it and you're still denying it? I mean, cognitive dissonance, or is this place like this? And there's PCNs that have no level of soul, that it doesn't matter what you program into them because they are just a PCN. They are programmable and they're wired to be programmed. Also, another thing is, which I'll be talking about today, this goes hand in hand with this, catapult from this, or get on the diving board of what I'm going to get about ready to say into what we're going to be talking about today. Um, if you, how, what's your reaction or default systems? Default. Were we created to default into certain default things that we have to work through and change ourselves through the practice, different practices, awareness for sure, different practices? Because we default, it's like this. There's such an order that needs to be taken out. If you're out of order, something that isn't bad or good, it's not demonized, but if it's out of order, it is a demon to you, or can be your demon or your predator within you. Hence your emotions. So when you think about it, our default emotions is to notice, even it tells a story. As I'm looking at the New Testament, anybody that thinks the New Testament's the beginning of man's creation definitely is in another state of being and really has no knowledge of really how this thing works. Even I remember Jordan Maxwell and many other people now are saying that when you look at the New Testament beginning of Genesis, when you take Genesis 1 and you take Genesis 2, it's like true creation stories of where we created in manufactured almost, or taken our DNA and taking different things to create, that we had created a default system that doesn't align for our best interest, that will default us out of wholeness into a lower state of consciousness mindset. And if you don't know that, you will stay in those lower things and you'll keep doing things over and over. Like the old saying is, the beginning of something is like what does it say? The beginning of um, um, the beginning, doing something over and over and expecting a different results, a sign of ends, is insanity or crazy train. And when you start looking, and I start thinking about these things recently, and even more as I start looking, even as I evaluate myself, we always have the reflection. Conscious people have the reflection of knowing to take responsibility, because the only one you really have power over to make changes is yourself. So when I was looking at this, I was wondering, were we messed with in this new, after the flood, Genesis 1 and 2? Because Genesis 1 is Elo, many gods. Genesis 2 is the Wea, or I call the demiurge, just to be factual and actual. And why we tend to not have certain aspects, why we need to wake up, why we get amnesia and have to be wakened up out of a sleep, right? Why we have to be waking up out of a sleep. Why we have to be waking up out of a sleep. Why are we in a sleep mode? Why are we in a sleep train? Is part of the sleep train connected to us being part of the sleep train, part of the manufacturer's default system of who messed with our DNA, who messed with our default systems in Genesis 1 and 2, that we default to things like I had just mentioned that don't necessarily serve us in the long run. And if you stay asleep, you keep doing those things. And if you keep doing those things, it really never serves you, and you end up being crazy trained because you keep trying to find a different answer but doing the same things, and yet wondering why you're not getting a different answer or a different change or a different reality or a different, you know, the sign of insanity mentioned, as I had mentioned, right? Um, why? So I started looking at something very interesting to me, very, very interesting to me. And I'm looking at this and it says live, and I didn't mean to go live. I went to record. So I'm going to check something here just to make sure I'm not live because I don't think I'm live. And I don't want it to be live. I wanted to record today and just start this off with a recording. Um, and just start this off with a recording, and I'm live. And this was not meant to be, but it is. I meant to record this, but it is what it is. I am live on YouTube. Didn't mean to be, but it is what it is now. I'm not going to change this. So let's do this today. Definitely, we're on Riverside. We're uh, I had to work through some things to get this back with Riverside because it was malfunctioning and had to go through the process of getting this to work right while I was off. And yeah, this was meant to be recording, but anyways, I'm not going to trip on it. It is what it is, and maybe I'm supposed to be live. So we're live and in Technicolor. But anyways, um, um, so I started looking at this and piecing this together, and started really, 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 really looking at this. Why things are the way they are. But anyways, back to this Instagram post, and people are, like I said, left and right, just the other side of the same quarter, just like men and women are a dualistic plane, the other side of the same quarter. They're both humans, but one's feminine and masculine, electromagnetic and magnetic, right? And the opposites do attract in energy, magnets. Batteries are actually positive and negative. The opposites attract to make the whole thing work. But where we defaulted into a system with, they call it they call it junk DNA, which I more and more and not really buying. I believe it's been messed with through many times and periods of this, that we maybe had our DNA tampered with. And why do we default and then need to wake up to do work on ourselves to try to get to the wholeness state of who we are as really the divine spark. So the name of this today is message is that I'm going to put out. It's called the divine spark of responsibility. You go, really? The divine spark of responsibility. So I got a little bit to share with this divine spark of responsibility. Glad to be here again. I'm going to share my screen now, and I am going to share etymology first. And there we are. Um, the word for responsibility, and why I'm using the word responsibility, it says a fact of condition of being responsible, accountable, and answerable, meaning that one which for that which one is responsible, trust, duty, etc. Responsibilities in plurals, right? And it gets connected to the word response, responsible, if we can go down this. But what I was even looking is look at even the word this way. So when we seen this, what have we seen? We seen the condition of responsible, accountable, answerable. And what is the opposite of even those things when we look at it is, um, let me go back into the studio and I'll stop my share because I'm going to, we looked at this, right? Let me see, stopping share. I haven't been here for so long. I don't even know how to stop my share. Stopping share. Let me go back in. Wow. Okay, stop the share. Wanted to stop the share, and of course, I already know that it didn't um, left my background out, which I knew it would because that's my computer problem. I was very not happy with them, with Riverside, thinking it was their fault and not getting help, and then I had to deeper dive into an older person, not knowing, not being the big computer head AI head. Um, that the reality about this is it's really a condition of my computer not holding my background when I share pages, and then kind of getting confused because I was doing a few of these just on YouTube. But anyways, so when you looked at the word responsible, it talks about being accountable, um, responsible, accountable, dealing with others. But the thing that's lost here or not mentioned is being accountable to yourself, right? Being accountable to yourself. Um, and if you're not accountable to yourself, it's usually because of lack of responsibility. But notice the word responsibility. What do you notice in it? I'm going to break it down, what you didn't do in etymology. I didn't like the thorough job that I didn't think responsibility did in etymology. I'm finding etymology is getting weaker. And I think it's done on purpose because they realize a lot of people have caught on to etymology and it was hidden from us and never taught to us in the school systems, which it should have been taught to us in third grade. But they know people, and if you tell them to that young, they're going to start decoding stuff. And take your system will be revealed at a sooner age. It would delay programming or even stop people's programming. But anyways, take the word response. It's an ability. A response has an ability when done correctly. The correct outcome you would want is accountability, right? Accountability. Notice in the little stories they give us, when anybody's caught with their hands in the cookie jars, what is the first thing they do is pass the blame or act like it's not them. As children, we also do this too. We pass the blame or say it wasn't me, blame it on somebody else, and not really follow through with accountability for thine self. Um, it's very interesting to me that this is that when you look at response ability. There's an ability. I know it's not spelt that, but obviously it's there. Response ability. Notice it's not reaction ability, it's a responsibility. The very thing that we seem to have not having our default systems equipped with that we must work on and become aware of is taking responsibility. I see that really all over the place in the carnal or in them who are not expanding consciousness. I notice that it's been actually attributed and very much in the default system of always make it says when somebody has responsibility, they're going to be accountable, right? They're going to be accountable for their actions, for their it's actually a superpower because there's a change in your frequency of uploading yourself, taking yourself to in a frequency, opening up this frequency to you. I'm no more looking at frequency as something you have to go higher to. It's something that's there with you that you have to walk into. You just have to put it, activate it, change the channel, if you may, to accept a responsibility, accountability. So it says immediately when we looked at that, it was accountability would come with responsibility. Um, so the opposite of accountability is what? Not being responsible. You're responding, but you're not using the ability, which would be the higher aspect of you to open yourself to yourself. When you respond with not the abilities of your higher self, you would end up playing the victim, blaming others, always. And these two things right here actually walk you in this reality, even under into being prey for those who prey on you. decode that religiously too. If you don't take accountability by not being responsive, the default system seems to be, what? Me? Nah, not me. I wouldn't do that. I didn't do that. It's not my fault. It's Joey Jack's fault. It's Billy Sims' fault. Running back from Oklahoma and Detroit Lions. That's funny. I went right to that reality of an athletic venture, which responsibility definitely is taught when you're a child in athletics. That's a great part of being an athlete, especially a team sport. You learn to take it. You're taught. These days, I don't know, because they get away with everything because everybody's weak and soft and plays the victim. We see this all over the place now as the fall of the realities falling in every area. But if your response is not the ability, which would be the higher self that you have to decode and do work on and awareness on to change the default settings on, because your default settings are set in that which demises you or divides you or takes you down. Because you do divide yourself by divide and conquer mentality, which is all connected even into the lack of responsibility, because responding is an ability. Responding is an ability. And if you don't take and know this, you will not take accountability. And if you don't take accountability, you're going to go somewhere, and it's always playing the victim, blaming somebody outside of you, and playing victimhood mentality. Victim. Guess what a victim requires in a dualistic plane? You know what a victim plays in a dualistic plane? Victim in a dualistic plane, guess what they do? They have to have a perpetrator. So in a reality of duality, which is always going to have the other side, has to pop up in this dualistic plane. Guess what happens? The perpetrator has to show up because the victim needs a perpetrator. And it could be somebody outside of you, because that does happen, because you create that reality of being a victim, right? So the perpetrator shows up. 9 times out of 10, the perpetrator is created actually by you 100% of the time. But usually the perpetrator is you perpetrating yourself by your victimhood mentality that keeps on growing speed, and you don't change the default system because within yourself, you think it's justified to play the victim and blame somebody outside of you for your faults, your lack, and everything that goes with it. And you're not creating your reality. And the same people who will be saying, oh, and will do this will be the same thing people who say they're manifesting. And manifesting, what you're manifesting actually the perpetrator in your life, which is 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, you created it. And if it's outside of you and it's somebody physically, they have to show up in a dualistic plane, and no matter what the facts are and situations are, by not knowing that you need a response. And it's an ability that you have to change your responding into taking the ability to hold yourself accountable. And when you do hold yourself accountable, you'll take full responsibility of thine self. Now you can go into sovereignty, control, power. You're empowering yourself by taking full control, and power by taking responsibility, which births accountability, right? Which births accountability. And like I said, I went into that first 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes almost of why are we perpetrating ourselves? You are the victim, and you end up being the perpetrator in your own victimhood movie, play, reality that you create, and ham hock yourself, then want to turn around and blame it on somebody else, that you weren't the director and the producer, and you did run the script. yourself. That gives you no wiggle room when you go to accountability, because taking full responsibility means you're taking full accountability. There ain't no wiggle room. What did I just say? There is not any wiggle room in that. None. None. No wiggle room. You take full responsibility for your response. It activates a maturity and a higher level of yourself through awareness. Because those who do it are doing it through awareness. And believe me, you can go in and out of awareness by being caught up in a mindset. When things get overwhelming, and then you stop doing things that you know better than, and you need to be shook and say, hey, you know better than that. It also is MK Ultra, mind control, because when them that are asleep don't know, then it can be pushed on different levels of playing the victim to them who don't know, because those who, just like this world, this dualistic plane, the baby wildebeest, the lion has no pity on it. And that's this reality we live on. That's why they said the God of this world, the people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. That part, the perpetrating, the one that is the perpetrating God. In Gnosticism, they call it Yal the Baal. Does perpetrate. When you lack knowledge, there's no mercy. There's no grace. You just a chump, and you get eaten by the lion. This even resides within you in this matrix system. I'm telling you what, the Matrix is not a movie. It's a documentary. These movies, a lot of times, are all documentaries going back to the movie with Tina Turner and Mel Gibson. What was the name of that movie back in the middle 80s, late 80s? Thunder, what was it? Thunder something. Can't recall right now exactly the movie. Showing you a dystopian Fallout world. They've been showing you us these things in their movies. The freaking news is worthless and propaganda. I mean, just worthless trash. Either side. They just complement each other in a dualistic lower plane, because we live in a lower plane. When we could reverse engineer this if we knew, but people are caught up in their fear. Because if we just laid it all aside and said, hey, we're a unity of one, it don't matter what you look like, how tall you are, how fat you are, how skinny you are, how whatever you are. It's really not us we're the ones in that level being perpetrated. But you have to do the inner work not to play the victim against each other and against yourself, because you're bringing forth that demise to yourself by always playing the victim. Why? Because you take no response and you don't activate your ability. You're responding, but you're really reacting. You're responding, but it's not through your abilities. It's through your programmed default system that keeps you into the lower state of being. And what happens with that? You get hijacked, bullywhapped, slapped around, go through the world hating everybody, calling everything a failure that you do, and then blame the next guy. Or if you got the divorce, it's always the other side's fault. It's your spouse's fault, and you don't take accountability for yourself because you don't know responsibility. It was them, it's never you. And it begins all. The kingdom of God is within who? You. One more time, you. Let that sink in. You take responsibility for you. That's where it begins. It's the only place you have power. You can't overthrow the government by yourself. And what are you going to do? You would have to buy if you're going to go to war with the government, you're going to have to go buy your freaking military weapons if you're going to go to war with them physically. Where? You have to go buy them from them. You can't afford it. That's why it says the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. We fight not against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers in high places. You have to be equipped within by taking responsibility for yourself within. Let's look at the definition of this. We're going to share again the definition of this. See if any difference of this responsibility. A state, a fact, having a duty to deal with something or having control over someone. I'm going to take this even into another state. It's really not that has an aspect to it. This would be something in power and management, even anything in management, jobs, coaches, military, anything that would have to do with any place outside of you. How about the state of fact that you're having a duty to deal with something or having control over yourself, over you. Watch this, and even if you go down a little bit, notice similar. It says authority, control, power, leadership, management. Like I said, influence. And it says the state of being accountable or to blame for something. The group has claimed responsibility for a string of murders. And then similar would be gate, blame, fault. The opportunity, ability to act independently and make decisions without authorization. That's going into something else. So, yeah. Notice that. I switched it up because it wants to keep you outside of yourself. This is how this reality is, because if you never deal with yourself, that's your power to change you. It's not outside of yourself. The best way to be a good leader or a good job for other people is really to apply it to yourself first. Apply it to yourself first. Do the inner work. This is real spiritual work, not exoteric indoctrination camps called churches or temples or any of that. When you come out of exoteric knowing or lack of thereof of knowing, kindergarten school, or like I say, 40-year-old rotten Simulac schools that really don't teach you anything. And if you go look up the word exoteric and esoteric, it can blow your mind if you got an open mind and but if you're going to believe what you're going to believe, no matter what's presented to you, the reality, I don't know what to tell you, because I see that all over the place. That's why I'm looking at what's the default settings of this reality planted by them that rule this reality and the God of this world that we've heard mentioned, or the reality of this world of them that seem to be in charge. Notice the word in charge is like in charge is plugging something in to charge the battery. In charge, it's charging. You charging your phone because you've plugged in the inside, you plugged in your charger within. Similar to you, did you plug in the charger within yourself? Are you plugging in the charger, or your awareness of you within? Because that's the reality of, look, every spiritual teacher went into esoteric teaching. Jesus said the kingdom of God's within you. Why do you keep looking outside yourself? Why do you keep looking at everything outside of yourself? Why do you keep wrestling with that? Why don't you listen? But you're asleep. Your default system's off, and your awareness doesn't even show your default system. You don't even know you have a default system at this point and at this time. Buddha, same thing. Says it's within you. Buddha's within you. Buddha means enlightenment. And that's why you got to understand the esoteric meaning of this stuff has nothing. Whether these people were even historical doesn't matter. One more time, doesn't matter. But there have been people similar to some of these people, a lot of them, sages in them, who knew this stuff, that taught it. But guess what? Who it doesn't help? It doesn't help them who are in charge in the physical plane. And the Gnostics call it Yada Baoth, and that whole system just makes more and more sense. The demiurge sense. of this reality. And then when you look at other ancient teaching, this teaching of this reality, is this like the lower levels of the underworld? The most dense state where it seems like we're always catching the fade? What's the fade I'm talking about? I'm talking about always catching amnesia, not remembering who you are, and you think you're your physical body, and that physical false ass, I said false ass, it might as well say it, false ass, egocentric reality that you think everything physical is the reality more than that which is unseen. And then you start, that's why I said, go within and you'll start waking up to this. You'll be a knower, not a believer. Deprogram the programmed. Reverse engineer thine default systems. And sometimes we have to do it more than once in our life, even after we woke up. Because remember, I have to keep reminding me, even though I woke up to a certain sense, an area of knowledge and knowing, there's areas I'm asleep to still. Wake up, sleepy Gene. Wake up out of thine sleep, thou that sleepest, because there's areas where sleep at. There's areas, but there's some who have not woken up and are not, maybe not capable of. Are they those PCMs? Or NPCs, excuse me, non-player characters, just filling space and time in the game called life, where the whole world is a stage? Is this what this is? Is this what this really is? Starting to seem that way. People are worried more too about being right than getting the knowledge to find out that you're not right, that there's more to meets the eye unless you pop the third eye. I was even thinking about this, talking to my wife yesterday. We were talking about, told her, said, think about this. A cartoon, old cartoon, because this is an old cartoon. It's called Popeye. I go, listen, Popeye. And she goes, oh yeah, Popeye. And I go, no, listen, Pop-eye. And at first she wasn't grasping. I go, pop the eye? And she goes, oh wow, I didn't see that like that. Pop the eye, meaning pop that third eye. When you pop that third eye, is connected to the feminine aspect, which is olive oil, or olives create oil, the anointed or the anointed one. The Christ or Christos or Crisco. Like, what do you think they call Crisco oil? They're telling you, even in the reality around you, but it's hidden in plain sight. This stuff's hidden in plain sight. And you go, oh wow, I didn't see it like that. Of course we didn't, unless we pop the eye, unless we pop the pineal gland, pop it, open it, pop it open. I don't mean pop it to burst. I mean pop it open. You start seeing. Now you have the ability to see. Why? Because if you start seeing, guess what you start doing? It's called the divine spark of responsibility. The divine spark. The spark pops it. The spark pops it. Opens thine eyes, thou that sleepest. The spark pops it, opens it up, open the eye. And you start seeing what? The Christos, or the olives that create the oil, feminine aspect, olive oil. Why is she so thin? Why? You want to know why olive oil is so thin? It's your spinal cord going into your secretions through, up, down your spinal cord, down to the bottom, descending. The same that descended is ascending back up. Why? Because you took a responsibility The divine spark of responsibility through awareness of this process wakes you up so you don't play the victim. You hold yourself accountable. When things are going on in your life, you're having this self reflection so you become accountable, not to go into woe is me and I'm a shithead and I'm not good and I'm not. That's indoctrination of holding a BS, religious crap. You start making adjustments to thyself because you're not playing the victim. And when you don't play the victim, guess who doesn't get after you? The perpetrator. You create the perpetrator in your life, which really comes from you. You create it, and it can manifest in the physical too. It can be somebody outside of you perpetrating you because you creating it. You're creating your reality. Some people say, "We'll manifest it," but you also play the victim, and you're trying to manifest something that's a higher state that requires accountability and responsibility. And you ain't you're jive timing with that because you're in there and not really being responsibility. Haven't activated. You're responding lower state default system and not taking the ability of the higher self. Christ, Popeye olive oil. Popeye olive oil. What did Popeye have? Eat your spinach, greens, and go. What did he do? Who was Popeye's main detractor? Who was the one that was always trying to be his perpetrator, and especially olive oil's perpetrator? Brutus, the brute, or the brutal one, the one who is the perpetrator. Put these together. The truth is all around you once you start the decoding of this, but the responsibility is up to you. Did you activate your ability by quit playing the victim and hold yourself accountable instead of saying it's that guy there, it's that system? We know the system's, it's a matrix. The system's got a lot to say about the system and nothing good about it. But you have power even within the system to not be part of the system by learning to be the creator, and the frequency and vibration will be led. It's called some called it magic. MAJIC or JIK. Learning how to deal with your frequency and tap into the frequency. That's why people are wondering about abundance. And I was looking at this last night and really thinking about this when I was really meditating my thoughts. Abundance is easy through this process of this, what we're talking about there, the divine spark of responsibility. Another part. You can't go around always me, woe is me, playing Gulliver. You can't. Because you know what the divine spark requires for abundance is to have a gratitude frequency. Meaning, if you have nothing but peanut butter and bread in your house, have gratitude. If you drive a beat up whoopty, have gratitude. Because once you practice gratitude, gratitude is the very, very power that will take you out of uh, being poor. And what I mean by being poor, the reason you're poor is because you got a poor spirit first, because it starts there. You got poor frequencies because you don't take responsibility. You're always going to blame somebody else outside. Oh, them rich people over there. That's why I don't have. No, it's because you haven't taken responsibility for your frequency. You got a response and ability. It's your responsibility. Be accountable. Be accountable. Quit blaming others. Blaming others is a lack of accountability. And like I said, you keep blaming others and not taking accountability. You play the victim. Victim requires, in a dualistic plane that we live in, it requires you to have a perpetrator. And that perpetrator in the cartoon was, you had two aspects. You had a triangle in this. You had Brutus, the perpetrator. You had olive oil, Christ, olive oil, And then you have Popeye, popping the third eye, popping the middle single eye if you want to go the Western Christianity. Or if you want to go Eastern, it's a third eye. Popping your pineal gland will awaken you, and then the Christ consciousness can rise and fall, ascend, descend within you. But you got to be accountable to yourself and not play the victim, because that descends you into a state of staying. Had to share that today. That's why the name of this is going to be The Divine Spark Responsibility. You guys have an awesome day. And this is live. I didn't expect it to be live. I was going to record it and put it out, and I go, why am I live? I'm trying to adjust to this new system, and they changed everything here in Riverside. So I'm going to have to work with it if I want to just record. Also, if you can give to us, please give. That's right there on the screen. D-Boy West Coast Uncensored. Cash App, Daniel Abram, my name. You guys have a great and wonderful day. Appreciate you, love you, and we're going to be rolling.